trying this for the first time, trying to do something different from the other times. What I'll try to do is to give you an overview of the entire history of the brand since its inception in '81. And I'll do it using some picture to show what was going on back then until about 2002 if we get there. So, how the line actually started, how the brand was conceived. You know that there are controversial stories, many people claiming they invented Masters of the Universe. Roger Sweet, Mark, that was here last year, even Paul Cleveland say he invented it. Donald Glatt tried to sue Mattel last year. The truth is, Mattel invented Masters of the Universe. It was a team effort. Many people contributed with various aspects of the figures and the story and the brand also from the marketing standpoint. I think last year we saw what Mark did for the line, and I think from a fan point of view and also from an artist point of view like me, it's easier to say that Mark created most of it because we like to know who created the characters and who drew them. So for us it's easier to say Mark invented them, and it's absolutely true. But of course there were a lot other players that were contributing to it, and it happened, as Mark said, because of other people and because there was Mattel behind the line. So, to frame the time we're talking about, Mattel had just passed on the license for Star Wars. They could do toys for Star Wars, and they decided it wasn't going to work. So they passed it on them. And of course, you can guess they were pretty pissed that they had passed on them because Star Wars was so successful. They believed they could repeat the success with Battlestar Galactica toy, and that didn't work at all. So at that time, around 80 and 81, they were doing a lot of focus group and viability tests. Mark Ellis was hired to do this research. These researchers were meant to find out what kids wanted to see in a toy line. So we can start with the pictures. Okay. The next 4 images we're going to see are from one of those viability tests, and they are not from the 80s. Those are from 85. We don't have samples from the tests that have been done in 1980. So we're looking at later stuff, but the concept is the same. Basically, they were pitching to kids different ideas for a toy brand with different themes and seeing how kids reacted. So it was usually presenting different genres like military stuff, and the next one, fantasy stuff. Next. This is like a more sci-fi military version. And the last one, it's completely sci-fi with robots, etc. There were many more. Those are just 4 examples. And they did focus group and tried to see where the interest was most. They nailed down a few themes, and Derek Gable and Roger Sweet, Derek was Roger boss of Mattel, they had the task to create prototypes and a pitch for the line. One of the themes that tested best was the barbarian fantasy theme. And they started developing lines along those lines. Sorry for the pun. Along that theme. Next one, please. Okay, so they had a few competing ideas at the time. They had the Mini World line, the Giants line, and next one, please. Sir Gallant, which was a more fantasy line with a transforming hero that went from a kid to a knight and had a magic sword too. And the last one was Robin and the spacesuit, which I think is the next one. Yes, this is the only B-sheet we found for Robin and the spacesuit. Interesting thing, this guy is called Man-at-Arms. And he even has some elements. You can recognize something in the head and the compressor attached to his breathing apparatus over there. So a Man-at-Arms existed before the line was actually conceived. So they had all those lines, and the one that really tested well was the barbarian theme. Next one, please. What happened was that they were in charge of creating prototypes for a pitch to Mattel president, Ray Wagner. And Mark already had drawings of an hero he conceived when he was a kid. He had many names. One of them was Torak. This is from '79. Mark already had these drawings in his cubicle. It wasn't stuff that he was asked to do. It was just stuff he was doing on his own, developing ideas on his own. It was just part of the preliminary group at Mattel, where they were creating new ideas for toys before Mark Ellis came in and developed a research group. As you can see in this one, there was already a barbarian hero and a skeleton guy. He had some of those ideas already when basically Roger Sweet went to his employees and just picked drawings that could be included in the pitch they were going to do to Mattel's president. Let's see, next one, please. Those are some of the stuff he already had, meaning that this art wasn't created after Masters of the Universe was conceived to produce the line. This art existed before. It was just stuff that Mark had already done, and it was just fitting the frazzetta style, as they called it, that they wanted to use to develop a pitch. Next one, please. And this piece is very important because it's what gives final evidence that Mark did do this stuff before Roger created his pitch. Because I've seen this in person, I can tell you this is absolutely real. This is a big piece of tracing paper with a Grayskull castle dated '79. So he had this before anybody else thought about this line. And I was saying everything was fitting in the theme they were trying to develop. So, next one, please. He started doing stuff for the pitch too. Here is already has a name, probably is a bit later, when the name was already assigned to the main hero. But those are really the first drawings that were done of He-Man as He-Man, not just a generic hero for the line. Next one. So, Roger took in his hand the task of sculpting the three figures for the pitch. There were the themes that tested better were sci-fi military, sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi, and barbarian fantasy. He took some big Jim figures, he put clay on them and make them bigger with a lot of muscles, and just created all the other stuff using kit bashing, basically other figures like a Boba Fett, a 12-inch Boba Fett from the Star Wars line, and other stuff. The one that tested better was the barbarian one, so they proceeded more in that direction. But he casted them himself, he painted them himself, and he pitched them in a famous meeting they had with Mattel president, Ray Wagner, in December I think it was December 81. And they were approved. They said, to proceed with the line. Along with those, there were Mark's drawings, and Mark was actually there. As he was telling us last year, he was surprised to be there because at the time he was just a packaging designer. So he didn't know what he had to do with this, but it was brought to the meeting, and his idea was approved. So Mark was given the task to develop the other characters for the line. Next one, please. Okay, so from then on, they decided how many figures there were in the line and what the other price points were. A toy line works basically with price points, meaning that in a shop, a company must have a certain number of low price point items, then there are mid price point, and then there is possibly one item with a very high price point. The figures are usually the lowest price point in the line. And Mark was in charge of developing the first 8 figures for this line, which were, at that time, there were He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Birdman, Teela, Demon, Tree-Man, Merman, and Sorceress, which was maybe evil too, not sure. So there were 6 male and 2 females. Somehow it was decided that maybe the kids didn't want to have 2 females at the time. I mean, you know that toy companies are very conservative. They don't believe that boys likes to buy female figures. So they decided to do just 1 figure. And the Sorceress was scrapped. Next one, please. Let's see what that. This is the Sorceress. And how she was originally conceived. And as you can see, she had a suit. She wasn't green. She was not flesh-colored. She was Caucasian. But she had this green suit. Then she became completely green when Alfredo Alcala drew the comic, the first mini-comic. So she was scrapped, but because of the way this figure was conceived, the accessories were blended with the Teela figure. So Teela was actually 2 figures in 1. She was supposed to represent both characters, both the Sorceress and Teela herself. Of course, in the next batch of mini-comics, she changed the name and became the goddess, but originally she was Sorceress. And essentially, it's what became Evelyn later on, while the concept of the goddess became Filmation Sorceress. Next one. So, since they blended Sorceress and Teela together, they needed 1 more character. And that one was Censor, that became Zodak. The interesting thing is that we know this was developed as the last one because differently from the other guys we've seen before, Man-at-Arms and He-Man, you can see how his feet and arms and belt and trunks are exactly like the final figure, which means the other figures had been already sculpted. So when Mark drew it, he drew it knowing that it was going to look exactly like this. Interesting thing is that it was supposed to be an hero, not an evil guy originally. So he changed it to an evil guy, and then he changed it back to an hero at one point. They were pretty confused, as we probably remember from the first stuff. Now, Mark took care of the figures, and he did some sketches for other for the vehicles. But in reality, the guy that was in charge of filling the other price point was Ted Meyer. Next one, please. And Ted started developing land vehicles like the Battle Chariot. And the Battle Chariot is the first one they did, and it almost got done. In fact, it was featured in the mini-comic. What we can learn from all this stuff is that all the mini-comics were done before the figure were sculpted. At least some some of them, at least 3 of them, because the art was based not on actual prototypes and final figures, but on Mark's B sheet. The battle chariot is the vehicle that had the big wheels on the back. So for a long time, all of us believed that this was an early version of the battle ram. It kind of was, and Eric and the 4 Horsemen based their sculpt of the new battle ram that we've seen here on this idea that it had bigger wheels, but it's actually wrong, because when the battle ram was developed, and I think it's the next one. Yes. Okay, this is the final design for the battle ram. The battle ram had just regular wheels, like the both were the same. It's cool because this is drawn by Ted, but the figure sitting, the transparent figure sitting on it, was drawn by Mark too. So Ted developed all the vehicles. It was instrumental also in developing the figures, because he had the technical knowledge Mark lacked at that time, so he knew how big the walls, meaning how thick the plastic had to be for certain things, how to develop features, articulations, etc. Now, Mark and Ted were the 2 guys that developed the look of the stuff, and there were other people. Roger created the name, He-Man, and they did a few tests for the name of the line, and at the end it was Power Lords and Masters of the Universe. And they were both testing well, but at the end was decided for Masters of the Universe, although there are some copies of the first mini-comic where the logo was not finalized, and at the end they are called Power Lords in the text. And it's a mini-comic that is circulating. I have a few copies, and I'm sure other collectors have them, because it's not a prototype, it's out there. So it was probably included with some of the first figures. Paul Cleveland claimed to be the one that came up with the battle action torso, the twisting waist with the spring. And Mark Ellis said it was Paul Cleveland too, but also Roger Sweet claims that it was the one coming up with the battle action torso. So we don't know who really did that. What happened at that point? At that point, they had vehicles that had figures that tested well with kids. Next one, please. They had slug figures, which were just one-piece sculpture like this, that were given to children to see how they responded to them in focus group, which is basically kids playing with toys and people looking at them behind the mirror. So using them as guinea pigs. And the other important guy for the line was Tony Guerrero. Tony Guerrero was a historic sculptor that worked at Mattel. And it's said that he also sculpted the first Barbie. Tony sculpted all the first figures himself. And he had a classical education about art and sculpture, and he did an amazing job. A lot of the stuff was also modified and implemented by him, because you can tell the difference between Mark drawings and Anthony. And Mark said it was really instrumental to the line, because it sculpted what made this figure so cool for kids. Holding them in their hands, it really nailed the look for Tila and for the other guys. Like, I don't know if who of you guys were here last year, but he told a story about how Tila, the first Tila sculpture he did was deemed too sexy for kids, and he had to tone her down too. Next one. Let's see what I have. There's like almost final sculpt for Man-at-Arms, and you can see the difference. The head, we have no idea why the head is like that at all. The arm is looking a lot like the the Vichy term. It was changed probably to be executed with an armor on top. The head, we have no idea. It looks like somebody, like an actual person, but we don't know who he is. But this was the kind of sculpture Tony was developing, and eventually they were engineered into the final figures. Next one. Let's see. Okay, and another instrumental guy was Bob Nell, which developed the packaging for the line, and probably he created the famous look with exploding rocks and the blue background, which it was the perfect packaging. I don't think Mattel nailed a good packaging like this since then, because it really stayed with all of us, and it was instantly recognizable. The colors were so striking. Red and blue primary colors were perfect for it, and they were complementing the figures well. Like He-Man would actually pop on top of this, and Skeletor too, because blue and flesh color. The packaging, Mark Ellis wanted to stress, he was writing us and wanted to stress how the packaging was instrumental in the success of the line. Now, what they didn't have at that time was any media support for this line. And when they were meeting with buyers, distributors, and who had to sell the stuff to the shops, of course, these people were asking, okay, what are you going to do to promote this line? And they actually had no plans. So during those meetings, Mark came up with stuff like, oh, didn't I tell you that we have a comic coming out? And they actually didn't. So it just make up stuff during the meetings. And after the meetings, it went looking for deals with publisher to do comics. And that's where that's when he went to DC and struck a deal to do mini comics and the miniseries and the Superman crossover too. And also at another one of these meetings, they asked, okay, but what are you going to do on TV? And they had nothing planned. They didn't even think about it. And they say, oh, didn't we tell you about the 2-hour special we're going to do? A 2-hour animated special? And it just invented it on the spot. They had no plans for that. So after the meeting, they started looking for animation studios that could do animation, this 2-hour special they planned for. They went to Hanna-Barbera first, and Hanna-Barbera wasn't interested in working on He-Man. So they went to Filmation, and Lou Scheimer was enthusiastic about the idea. But he suggested instead of doing a 2-hour special, why not doing a syndicated show where they could also buy advertisement for the toys and do a package where they have advertisement and the show together. And that worked very well. Next one, please. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot also about the packaging. Mark hired, going back to the packaging, we'll go back to the animation in a bit. For the packaging, Mark was the guy that asked his friends to work on the packaging. So he knew Rudo Brero, and he asked him to do Frazetta-like paintings, oil paintings for the boxes, and his college pal, Errol McCarthy, to do all the other stuff for the style guides and the back of the figure cards. Next one, please. And Alfredo, I don't think it was Mark that hired Alfredo Alcala, but Alfredo Alcala was the one chosen to do the art for the mini comics. This, by the way, this is one of the 2 original Alcala pieces we were able to find so far. We have no idea if anybody has this, if maybe Alcala family still has the art in the Philippines. It's most likely that's what happened to the art, because there is no art circulating. He sold 2 pieces at a shop in '99 before he passed. and we were able to score both of them. So we hopefully be able to also print them at one point. Next one. So Errol McCarthy did basically everything else, all the art for merchandising and for the style guides, and the back of the boxes. Most of them were done by Errol McCarthy. It was an artist that Mark met at college, and it was a very prolific artist. We got from him something like 300 pieces, and they were not even all the stuff he did for Masters of the Universe, but it's probably the most prolific He-Man artist of all of them. The funny thing is that until a couple of years ago, the fan community didn't even know his name, because he rarely signed this stuff, so we didn't know. We found out because his signature was in some Big Jim stuff he did before He-Man, so we knew his name. And once I emailed Mark Taylor and asked, "Do you remember a guy called Errol McCarthy?" And, "Oh yes, he's my friend. Here, it's copied in this email." So I got in touch with Errol and I went to visit him, and we got all the art from him. Next one, please. This, probably you remember this from a lot of stuff. It's more art from him. Next one. Okay, and now we go back to the animation. Now, as you may know, the first thing that Filmation did was a commercial, an animated commercial. And in this commercial, the figures were represented a lot more faithfully. So it had He-Man and the other guys had a lot of the details from the figures. Of course, it was a short commercial. And when you do a short thing, it's possible, of course, to put more effort in it, to put more details, etc. When you do an entire show, you need to make it easier for animators to draw hours and hours of animation. So while He-Man and the next one is, you can see model sheets. Those are model sheets for the commercial. You can see how close they were to the toys. When they got to develop the art for the TV series, they had to simplify them to just make it possible to animate them all the time. So, going to the next one, you can see this is new stuff that we just got at the foundation. We got some development Filmation art from Masters of the Universe. This is one of the few He-Man we have where they were testing the face and the hair. And so they started doing rotocast tests and drawing on top of them, and they were developing the final look for the show. There is an He-Man. Next one. This is a hairly version of Skeletor. It's almost nailed down, but this is still a rough version of his final one. Often you could see that Filmation guys wrote jokes at the bottom of the paper sheets, and here it says, "I have an hamburger and a order of fries, please." Just because of the pause. But it was okayed by, I can't read the signature, but somebody okayed this style for Skeletor, so it was developed more and refined. Next one, please. Okay, those are some early version of the Sorceress that were done in pencils. She was probably supposed to have a blue helmet or hairpiece at the beginning. Next one, please. Those are some very nice pieces we got from Tila. This stuff that animators do to develop out the characters' emote, how their expression works. And she's kind of a little different from the final Tila, but those are absolutely awesome drawings. She kind of looked a little younger here too. But these are really sweet pieces, and we have a bunch of those that we hope to be able to print too, because the Tila folder we got has a lot of this cool stuff. Next one, please. And like there are some Trapjaw development art, for example, and this is not for the commercial. This is for the final cartoon, and you can see how it had a lot more details, and especially the arm still had the articulation before they decided to simplify it. And the articulation was actually kept until the final model sheet. The final model sheet had the articulation in the arm, and then they replaced it with just the full arm without articulation. And that was done with just pasting a piece of paper on a photocopy. It wasn't redrawn. But he had it almost till the end. Next one, please. Okay, so going back to the toys, there were other designers that work on it. One of them was Colin Bailey, that we really don't know who exactly did, who Colin did, but we know that he did Whiplash, he did Evelyn, he did Trapjaw, and Mark said he did a lot of stuff. We couldn't find more from him, but we know it was instrumental too after Mark and Ted. Funny thing about this piece is that I didn't get this from Mattel guys, but it was a small, like this small Polaroid included with some Filmation model sheets. So it was a reference that was given to Filmation to develop this guy, and they actually are model sheets based on him before it was completely changed. Next one, please. Oh, okay, yeah, he did Bats Off too. It was called Bug Off or Waspman. And this was based on a Mattel prototype that it's in our first catalog. Next one, please. And then we have Roger that also drew a lot of characters, like a Black Widow that eventually became Webster. Next one, please. A Human Periscope that became Mechanic. Another fun thing is that we got a proof card for Mechanic, the actual toy card. And on the back, the aerial drawings where Mechanic is peeking out from a mountain, looking at the evil guys walking. And is colored like this. It's red and blue with the green helmet. It's very fun because it's exactly the drawing we know from the final figure, but it's colored like this. Next one, please. Okay, this is stuff we haven't shown yet. This is probably new. We got a bunch of stuff from David Wolfram. David Wolfram was hired in '85, straight from Otis College. It was working more on the final design of the figures. It developed Titus, Megator, the final version of them, the giants, the dinosaurs, and this is the almost final Mosquito. I would say it was sculpted from this one, and then they changed just the colors. But you can see the weapons was finalized, the head was finalized. And Dave Wolfram is kind of an important guy because he stayed there at Mattel, and he went to work on the 2002 line with the Four Horsemen too. Before he left, I think in 2004 or 5, when he retired. Next one, please. Another guy is Ed Watts. Ed Watts was coming from Honda. He was an industrial designer, and he did a lot of beautiful paintings where illustrated concept for vehicles and figures. This is the Ball Buster before it became the Bashasaurus. And this was probably what was pitched to Lou Shamer. And when he heard Ballbuster, he said, no, I'm not going to have this thing in my show. The design of this was actually a lot more effective because it was in the front, and the way the ball arm was shaped, it was a lot more effective because it went really far from the vehicle. While the one that they created at the end that was modified by engineering department wasn't as effective, and the ball didn't actually went that far from the vehicle. So Roger was not happy with the final design of that one. Next one, please. Okay, and this is Gigantisaur, final design that David Wolfram did. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the prototype that was printed on a Mattel 88 catalog or 87 catalog, and this was the design. It was supposed to have main feature. The main one was supposed to be that the dinosaur was able to actually swallow figures. You could put a figure in his mouth, it would have swallowed and traveled all along his neck, and you would have recovered from his belly. The belly opened, and you could retrieve the figure from that one. Next one, please. But Gigantisaur was actually came after Turbosaurus, which was another dinosaur concept, still with an opening belly, where the figure had cannons, and there was sort of like a base inside. One of those concepts is printed in our catalog in an illustration by Ed Watts, but this is the design by Dave Wolfram. And this is a new one that nobody has seen, I guess, unless Dave showed it at PowerCon maybe a couple of years ago. It's a very cool thing. It did many stuff for the dinosaurs. And again, stuff that we'll love to show on a book someday. Next one, please. Okay, I'll have to go faster. Now, going a bit faster, we went through people that worked until the end of line. We're going back to 84 now. 84 is the year the movie was pitched first. So the movie didn't happen just in 86, 87. It started in 84. Mattel wanted to do a movie since 83, and the pitch to various studios was done in 84. The artist responsible for the pitch was an Italian guy, Claudio Mazzoli, which was the art director of Gardaland, a theme park, an amusement park in the north of Italy. Claudio Mazzoli was working with Disney, and for a time, I think he worked also with Lucasfilm. And he developed the pitch for the movie. So he developed characters. Next one, please. Like He-Man, Evelyn. Next one. And small storyboards to show some of the action, like this throne room where a captured He-Man is brought in front of Skeletor in the Grayskull throne room. Next one, please. And also full pre-visualization. Now this stuff is all done digitally. I do this kind of stuff for the Transformers movies, but they are just small images done digitally. Back then, those were done on like 1 meter by 1.5 meters boards, giant cardboards, done in gouache or acrylic. So there were these big paintings that were used at presentation where they were pitching the ideas for stuff. And this is the holosphere scene with Skeletor talking to Eternia's Hermes and announcing that he's the new ruler of Eternia. So they kind of had the story already at that time. At the end, the movie went to Canon Films, and they started developing it. Next one, please. Oh, this is another, it's not really a story, but it's more pre-visualization, but it's like the junkyard battle, as it's called, where He-Man and the other guys are fighting He-Man. Skeletor troopers on Earth during the movie. Next one. Another, just a little parenthesis, is another important artist was Ern Norem, which did covers for books and the magazines, and it became really famous among the fans for this. Here you can see a preliminary sketch for the Rock Warriors book for Golden. Next one, please. This is a pencil, just a pencil sketch for one of the, for the Sunbird Legacy book. Next one. Oh, and at one point, also going back to the toyline, because okay, the movie was pitched, but what was happening at the same time for the toyline? They discovered that a lot of kids buying the line were females. So they right away started to develop a line extension. And Mark's drawing, actually Ted was in charge of drawing some of the stuff and developing more female figures. Now, a little thing. Some people asked me if this was Illumina, and I based the Illumina on this one. Illumina has nothing to do with this. It's just fans speculating because she had a cat, but there were two completely different ideas. Nothing to do with this one. Next one, please. So this stuff led to development, of She-Ra. But instead of being developed at Mattel, it was developed in conjunction with Filmation, and Lou Shamer with Michael Straczynski and Larry DiTilio created the characters. So Michael Straczynski wrote the Bible for the series and actually created names for the characters. At the same time, both Mattel and Filmation were doing concept art for the characters. And there are a lot of pieces with different She-Ras, like this. Next one, please. This is starting to get closer, but there are like 20 different versions of She-Ra developed by Filmation. Next one, please. And yeah, I don't know if we ever showed this one, but yeah, this is one of the early Hordak and Shadow Weaver. This is actually the only piece of development art we saw for Shadow Weaver. That looks nothing like the final one, of course. But those are very, very cool pieces by Curtis Sim. Next one, please. Very nice Catra. One of the many again. Next one. And okay, we're running because we're running out of time. So the movie was in production then. And Gary Goddard was picked as the director of the movie. Claudio Mazzoli suggested William Stout as one of the designers, and William was also friends of Gary Goddard, and he became the main designer for the movie. There was a lot of work done in He-Man, and these were kind of the finalized version of He-Man for the movie that were also done on top of Jean Giraud, Moebius art, because they weren't liking what William Stout was doing, so they brought in, William Stout brought in Moebius to design He-Man too. And we can see on the next one, before, we'll see a He-Man done by Stout first, but of course, Lubick, I couldn't not have a Lubick here, but Bill Stout also designed Lubick Goes Eternian. Next one. It developed the look of Castle Grayskull too. It went wild because they couldn't build a set for it, so it was going to be a matte painting. And you can see this is kind of the final look he had before it was done as a matte painting. Next one. This is one of the early sketches for He-Man that he did. And as you can see, it's quite different from the final one. Let's see. Next one, please. Oh, and he also designed Robbie's ribs. Next one. Now, Claudio Mazzoli went back to work on the movie too. It was still part of the crew, and so he worked on the movie 2 times. This is production art, which is it was done at a different time and for different purposes than the previous stuff we've seen by Mazzoli. And he created the look of Wilder. He actually has still in his studio a Wilder mask sitting on a mannequin. Next one, please. This is a Seirod design before Bill Stout finished it. And the helmet is interesting. I don't know if any of you ever saw it, but there was an illustrated book for children during the 80s when we were kids, done by Claudio Mazzoli and written by Gary Goddard, which originated as a movie pitch for a kind of a sci-fi version of Abraham's story, with futuristic Egyptian and that helmet was used in that pitch, and he recycled it basically for Seirod here. Next one, please. Okay, so the movie didn't work well, but Mattel wanted to expand the line, and they were going to do Power of Grayskull, which was going into the past of Eternia with a new hero, which was called Grayskull actually first, and then it became Hero. So that's why he had the G on his chest, and you can see the G still on some of the box art, like Turbodactyl box art has the G on Hero's chest. Next one. And this is a pitch piece where you can see the Snake Man fighting Hero, Eldor, the giants, the dinosaurs, and He-Man and sorcerers watching from the future what was going on. But what happened was that Mattel completely failed at doing the right case ratios when distributing the toys to the shops, to the retailers, and they had a lot of tertiary characters and not enough main guys, not enough He-Man and Skeletor. So people couldn't find He-Man and Skeletor, but they had those tertiary characters. And they weren't buying them because they couldn't find them any heroes. And those toys were sitting on the shelves, unsold. A lot of them. And Mattel had pushed a lot of these toys at retailers. And the retailers were stuck with these toys and they couldn't sell them. So coming the next year, they just didn't order new toys. So the toy line went from 2 billions to, I don't remember, it was like 17 millions in total. A huge drop. That was the end of it. They just couldn't support the line anymore. And so Power of Grayskull was discarded and the line ended. Next one, please. This is the card back for Eldor, the original black and white one. And they were proceeding with more filler toys at that time because they didn't develop a lot of new products. Waiting for Power of Grayskull to happen, they created a filler line, which was basically cheap toys to produce, just to have new products in stores, but very fast. That's why many of the final figures are just recycled molds, like King Randor, Clamchamp, and Ninjor, and Scarglow. The worst thing was that we were going to get even more of those filler figures that were supposed to be completely recycled. Even the heads were going to be recycled from previous guys, like Whiplash and Fisto and Ninjor. Next one, please. And Strobo, for example, with those Snake Man troopers of some sort. So Strobo was actually a toy that was going to be out in '88 probably. Mattel doesn't even know that. But we found, and we know that we're almost in production because these are the card backs. Those are where the illustrations that were going into the cards. So we were very close to get them, but they were all discarded. Next one, please. I don't know why this doesn't work, so you can skip this one. After the line failed, they still wanted to do something. They were thinking about doing it again. But the only new toy they had planned at the time was this electronic power sword. They had the concept for an electronic power sword made by Mark DiCamillo, and then this is another drawing by Dave McElroy, but they just didn't know what to do with it. One of the ideas that was developed was to do a new TV show with a new interactive feature in the toy, so the toy could actually interact with the TV, which is a concept that you're probably more familiar with for Captain Power, because it was first developed for He-Man and then didn't happen with He-Man and happened with Captain Power, which was developed by Landmark and Mattel together. But for some time, it was a He-Man thing. Next one, please. And actually, for some time, they discussed about doing live-action He-Man show. Well, there was a cartoon with live-action segments and also a full live-action show. For the live-action show, there are some drawings by Dave McElroy that show some vehicles like this one, and I think the next one too. Yes. You can see they look more like real vehicles, because to keep the show affordable, they were thinking about taking real existing vehicles and modify them. So they were like taking a real motorcycle and adapt it so it could look like an Eternian motorcycle. So yeah, it was going to be very cheap too. I guess it's a good thing that didn't happen. Next one, please. This is like one of a possible playset for this new line with interactive feature that eventually become New Adventure of He-Man. Next one. Now, you heard a lot of stories now about this hero Son of a Man pitch. No, actually, just Son of a Man pitch with Dare in it. The problem I have with this, what the stuff Mattel say, what Scott says about this, is that it's not the only one. And I understand that's the only thing that they found at Mattel, so they believe that's all there was, and the stuff in it is very important, but it's not. It's one of many pitch. There was the military He-Man pitch. There was Son of a Man pitch that came later. And one of the biggest one is probably this one, Master of Space. Some of the art in the Son of a Man pitch is coming from here, actually. And it was where Filmation developed a new adventure story with Castle Grayskull being destroyed and Starship Eternia emerging from Castle Grayskull. Next one, please. And there was all sorts of crazy stuff like Skeletor Sister, Skeletrix. And there were also Skeletor niece, Funny Bone and Honey Bone. Yeah, it was going to be bad. So, I mean, be glad that we got what we got for New Adventure and not this stuff. And there was a talking Power Sword. And Power Sword always wanted to kill enemies. And He-Man had to talk the Power Sword into not doing it. It's true, it's all in the Bible of the series. It's very interesting. But there are like 92 pieces of artwork in this pitch, including, I think next one. Let's see if I have it. Yeah. You can see how Filmation was the one developing He-Man look there. So they actually, and that one is kind of the final look. So after that, Filmation wasn't hired to do the show. Jetlag was. And next one. There is a black and white, but probably from a colored version of this one in Son of a Man pitch. Next one, please. Then, of course, we have Mattel working on this finalized New Adventure stuff. This is all it left, unfortunately, for some of this stuff. This is Dave McElroy artwork. There's Artilla, or Weaponstronic, as it was known in Europe. And those are figures designs. And I mean, all this stuff is probably completely lost and destroyed. So we managed to rescue some photocopies. Next one, please. And we also managed to get some slides of the box art for the figures. We have a bunch of those. Next one, please. And the cross-cell heart that went into the back of the figure. Next one. Okay, so New Adventure finished. And the line went on hiatus for a few years until 1999, when the Four Horsemen left. They were employee of McFarlane Studios. They were doing toys there. They got together. They decided to quit McFarlane and went to found their own studio and work on their own. And they put together a pitch for Masters of the Universe toys. They went to Mattel and they pitched their ideas for He-Man toys. And they had some drawings by Eric Treadaway, like this. And next one. And prototypes, like this He-Man. Those are the prototypes shown at the meeting with Mattel. It turned out that Mattel was thinking about relaunching He-Man at that time too. So they really liked their work, and they started working together. The first one were hired. In the next one, you can see more of those original prototypes that were more articulated. Is not really visible here, but Skeletor had articulation and in the knees still here. And the next one. Yes, you can see the articulation on the knees and on the elbow. You can see the pin coming out of the articulation. And also the style was not so manga, like what Mattel requested them to do later on. And they worked a lot on the hair. These are still the first hair. This was actually sculpted by Chris de Halberg. And you can see also how the armor was different there. Next one, please. And at the same time, when they started working on the toy line, they hired Mike Young Production. And Mike Young Production started doing concept exploration for what the cartoon would have looked like. This, of course, is inspired by Bruce Timm art for the Batman and Superman series that had a huge impact on animation back then. Next one, please. But also Gary Hartle, which was also the director of the episodes, was also a character designer and started developing a He-Man that was more in line with what the Four Horsemen were doing and what Mattel wanted. This is a mid-stage working piece for him. There are a few He-Man sketches. This is just one example to see what they were doing at that time. Next one, please. A Merman idea, which looks quite interesting and quite detailed. And next one. King Randor, Captain Randor actually, by Gary Hartle. And next one. A much older Keldor, as you can see. They made it more handsome in the final one. Next one. And okay, when they got to the second season, most of the art for the Snake Man was the design art was originally done at Mattel. Particularly King Is and Snake Armor He-Man were created by Ruben Martinez, which I think you are familiar with now because of the work he did on the classics figures, where he basically ruined a lot of the figures. Because Ruben is actually a pretty good artist, but he is not an engineer. So he was brought to do work on the classics that it just couldn't do. It wasn't prepared to do. But it's actually a very cool artist. Is a good designer. Some of the good stuff done at Mattel for 2002 was done by him. And from those designs, we went to the last one, I think, which are the animated version of the characters he created. And the Four Horsemen created the figures based on the final version by Ruben and the animators. And I think that's it, because I don't think there is, yeah, that was the last image, and we just did 1 hour and 5 minutes. So I don't think we have time for questions, but that was it.
Yep. No? What? Yeah. Okay. Questions. Hat jemand Fragen dazu? Ich bin auch gern bereit, vielleicht mit dem Englischen auszuhelfen, falls sich jemand bemüßigt fühlt. Here we have. It is about the question with the Power and Honor Foundation working together with Mattel. There any positive answers?
Not right now. The catalog wasn't authorized by Mattel, and they didn't like that a lot, of course. And we knew that when we went into doing it. The problem was that we had offered this artwork to Mattel for 2-3 years. Like, Scott Knightley told us they were developing a book, and we said to Scott, we have a lot of art that you can include into the book you're doing. Please keep us in mind, because we can help you. I think our message never went past Scott. Scott was the only guy we talked to, and nobody else knew it. They did their own book, nobody knew about us. And we kept offering this stuff to Mattel, to Scott, because we had no other communication with nobody else. It was always refused, it was always ignored, and then we had no choice to just do it on our own. Now, because of that, and because of a lot of other stuff that has been going on behind the scenes, and basically because nobody else at Mattel know anything about what happened between me, the Power and Honor Foundation, and Scott Knightley, they just have no idea. And they just heard that we are difficult guys to work with, that we just create troubles, etc. They have no idea what's really going on. They just gave up working with us. We tried to work with Dark Horse. We offered our help, and we did it again when they made this appeal a few weeks ago. Because they put online a list of stuff that we have, that nobody else has. So we said, guys, if you want our help, we're still willing to help you guys. We just want to work at good conditions. Many people always ask me, what are those conditions? Because maybe they believe we just want crazy stuff. We want just one thing. We want to be credited for the work we do. We don't want to just give away art to them. If we help them, if we look at the book and help them with information, etc., we do actual work for them, and we provide artwork, and we say, you need to use this here and this other here. We just want that in the credits of the book, now that even that if the book has a writer now, which is Tim Seeley, we just want to be credited as consultant. That's all we ask for. We want recognition. We did, me, James, Josh, we did too much stuff during the years that was not recognized. And we volunteered to do stuff. We helped Scott behind the scenes. We provided information. It became quite frustrating and humiliating to be always pushed apart and not be recognized for the work we did. We really don't want anything more than that. Of course, I mean, if we are hired to do a job, a big job, not just consultant, it's an actual job. There is time to spend on that. So we'd like also to get paid because it's time we will subtract to our daily jobs. But the main things remain the credits. If we can be included in the credits, if we can actually contribute to the book with information, because believe me, most of the stuff you heard from me now, Mattel has no idea of all the story. Mattel doesn't even have contracts and records of the people that work at them, or at their place. Like, they don't know who created the artwork. They don't know who worked there. And I'm not going to criticize why they don't have this, but we can help. We can just make their product better. If we help them with information, the book will be better and will sell more copies. Dark Horse realized that. It's an obvious thing. If the book is better, it will sell more, which is the only thing that matters, really. If Scott doesn't like me personally, it shouldn't matter. Yeah, I don't like him, he doesn't like me. But if we work together, Mattel can make more money. Nothing else matters. Not for us, but for Mattel, it should be this way. Because their company, their purpose is to make money. So I think they should just push away all the problems and work with us. And we're willing to do the best we can. We are not difficult to work with. I have a relationship going on for 6 years now with Hasbro, and they think I'm one of the easiest guys to work with. And if Mattel gave us a chance to prove that we're actually very easy to work with, we will prove it. And we did it back in the days when we were doing stuff for them. So we sent our message to Dark Horse again, and they understood where we are. There is all I can say right now. If something good happens, people will know. If nothing happens, it will remain like this. But I can say that if nothing happens with Dark Horse and Mattel, we'll do our own stuff. We are tired of waiting for something to happen. We'll find a way to do something with the foundation. Maybe if I have another 30 seconds, I want to address one thing. People always ask us to put stuff online for free. I need to explain this. I always try to explain this, and I have to explain why we don't do that. First, we are a non-profit organization, a real non-profit organization, but being non-profit, it doesn't mean that everything happens for free. We have expenses, a lot of expenses. The art costs money. The provider where we have our archive, cloud archive, costs money. We have a website. We need to pay a lawyer to deal with Mattel. And I mean, when we travel to get stuff scanned, we have to pay for the travels. When we ship stuff to convention, we have to pay for that stuff. This money has to come from somewhere. If we just give away the art is the only thing that can help us make some money. We call it, it's a virtuous circle. If we share art, we can make some money with the art, which will help us share more art in the future. If we start giving away art for free, we won't have the means to make some money for the foundation to make more stuff happen. So it has to go this way. It's just, even if we're a non-profit, we work like any company. We need the funds to work. And also, honestly, personally, I don't think putting art online does justice to the art, because you see low resolution stuff that is not great. Having a book is the best way to do it, for me personally, and also doing exhibitions. But we need to be a bit more safe and protected from legal action, etc., before doing this. Hope this answered all your questions. Thank you so much, guys, for the support. Yuka has a question.
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification on those matters. Going back to the presentation that you just did.
Sure.
I was looking at, we've seen the hero artwork in the catalog before, and he has in the knees, the boots have a, is it a lion or a tiger? Yeah, sort of the lion emblem or shape. Now that you showed that one early image of He-Man for the movie pitch, he also had a lion image on the knees. Is there any story to that, or do you have information?
I don't have any story, but I don't think there is any relationship. It's, you know, when you design fantasy wares, there are obvious things that you use. I mean, you want to use animal motifs on the design of the stuff. It's just because it has always been used in history, like on real armor, etc. So, you know, there are common motifs that are recurring. So I just think it's absolutely a coincidence that there is a lion motif on the movie version and on Hero. Just because lion is, of course, symbol of strength. So it's easy that a designer associate the lion with He-Man. It's just that. I don't think Claudio Mazzoli had any interaction with Mattel at all, other than the pitch for the movie. Anybody else?
Do you know why the sign of the armor from He-Man has changed from the 80s to the 2000X?
Yeah. They wanted a more recognizable symbol they could own. Because a cross is a cross. It's a common shape, and they can't trademark. They changed it to a shape that was owned by Mattel. It was proprietary of Masters of the Universe. Only He-Man could have that one. And they could protect it and sue people if they used it. It was really about creating a symbol that was specific to He-Man and wasn't too generic like the cross.
And why they don't use from the metal armor? The sign. The M and H?
You mean that the H? Oh, why they didn't use that one?
Yeah, why? Because there was already a sign for...
Yeah, it's true. There was the H from the battle armor. I think they wanted something that kind of resembled the cross. It was closer to the cross because it still had to maintain the same look, you know, the gray harness with the red shape. But so they just tried to make something that resembled the cross, that had the same sides, but it was different. The H was a completely different shape. It was more horizontal shape.
We get two questions about the second catalog.
Sure.
Is there anything planned, and what is planned, and if there's something planned, and yeah.
Okay. Well, what I can tell you is that, of course, we had planned many more catalogs. I'm not gonna tell you how many, but there are more than 10. And we have enough stuff for that much. Of course, different kind of catalogs, not just toy books. We didn't actively work on one book yet because of all the stuff that has been going on. First, dealing legally with Mattel, lawyers, then chances to do with Dark Horse, then other ideas. I mean, there was always some, okay, what is going to happen next? We don't know. What we kept doing was buying art, photographing toys, buying merchandising and toys, cataloging stuff, talking to people. I mean, we did a lot of behind-the-scene work. We just never finalized work on one book. The one we are kind of starting to develop now is possibly a toy guide, which is much needed because there are not toy guide, like there are a lot of Transformers toy guide, there are Star Wars toy guides, there are other toy lines, but there isn't a good He-Man toy guide. Actually, nobody published an unofficial toy guide. So I think it's the time to do it. And funny story is that the foundation kind of started with this because I always wanted to do a toy guide, and we never did. And I mean, me and Val wanted to do a toy guide. We never did it, and after we understood that it was legally possible, Val said, screw it, let's do the toy guide. So he pushed me to do the books, basically. And after that, things changed because Josh brought his collection, and we created the foundation, and we did the first catalog instead of the toy guide. But the toy guide is what we want to do next. Also because it's the most safe one. Nobody can say anything about a toy guide. Once the products are sold, a company can sue us for doing an official guide about toys that has been sold. And I know that for sure. But we have other plans. We have plans for filmation books, especially. We had something laid out. Of course, if something changed with Mattel or Dark Horse, our plans should be reworked. It's the uncertainty that kept us from having a more refined plan so far. But, we're working on something. Whatever happens, we'll do something more. Not sure when, but we'll do it. We just don't know if it will be official or not official and what is going to be next. But actually, if we're working on the toy guide, that's something I wanted to ask to you guys. If there are hardcore variants collectors among you of the vintage toys, please contact us because we need your help with that book. That will be very appreciated if we can get in touch and discuss variants. Okay, you want to use this one?
Thank you.
Okay.